What if I told you that the one thing destroying empaths isn't the cruelty of others, but a single decision they refuse to make? Stay with me, because what Carl Jung discovered about emotional exhaustion will fundamentally change how you understand burnout forever. Carl Jung said that the psyche has a natural drive toward balance. When that balance is violated repeatedly, the mind doesn't just suffer, it begins to shut down. And nowhere is this more devastating than in the life of an empath who hasn't yet learned the one decision that changes everything. You see, most people think emotional burnout is about doing too much, but Jung's research revealed something far deeper and, frankly, far more unsettling. Here's what nobody tells empaths about their exhaustion. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll see your own fatigue in an entirely different light. According to Carl Jung, every individual possesses what he called psychic energy, a finite reservoir of emotional and psychological fuel. Most people spend this energy gradually, naturally, but empaths, they hemorrhage it, not because they're weak, but because they've never been taught that their energy is something they're allowed to protect. And that single misunderstanding is the root of everything. Jung discovered that the empath's nervous system operates in a state of constant reception. They don't just notice emotions around them, they absorb them, process them, carry them. Every tense conversation, every unspoken resentment, every silent cry for help in a room gets metabolized by the empath's psyche as if it were their own pain. But here's where it gets dangerous, and this is the part most people completely miss. Carl Jung observed that when someone consistently prioritizes external emotional demands over their own internal needs, they enter what he called psychic inflation, followed by collapse. The empath gives and gives, feeling momentarily powerful in their ability to heal others, until one day the well doesn't just run dry, it caves in entirely. That's not just tiredness. That's what Jung termed a crisis of the self, and it requires more than rest to fix. Listen carefully to what comes next, because this is the turning point that separates empaths who burn out permanently from those who become unbreakable. According to Carl Jung's theory of psychological types, empaths operate primarily through what he called the feeling function. This means they evaluate the world through emotional significance. Everything matters. Every interaction carries weight, every relationship demands investment. But Jung understood something crucial that most empaths haven't yet realized. The feeling function without conscious boundaries doesn't create connection. It creates enslavement. The empath who says yes to everyone is not generous. They are, in Jung's terms, psychologically possessed by the expectations of others. They've confused their identity with their usefulness. And the moment they stop being useful, they don't just feel lost, they feel erased. This is the wound that no amount of self-care rituals can heal, and here's why. Carl Jung discovered that surface-level recovery, the baths, the retreats, the affirmations, addresses the symptom but never the cause. The cause, according to Jung, is a fundamental misalignment between the persona and the authentic self. The empath has built an identity around being the healer, the listener, the one who holds space. But that identity is a mask. And behind that mask is someone who has never given themselves permission to need. That's the decision. And it changes absolutely everything. The decision that ends emotional burnout for empaths isn't about doing less. It's about reclaiming the right to exist without justifying that existence through service to others. Jung called this the withdrawal of projections, the moment when someone stops living through other people's emotional needs and returns to their own center. And here's what makes this so psychologically profound. According to Carl Jung, the empath's compulsive caretaking is often rooted in what he called the wounded healer archetype. They heal others because unconsciously they're trying to heal themselves. Every person they save is a proxy for the part of themselves they couldn't rescue. Every emotional crisis they manage is a distraction from the inner crisis they're terrified to face. But Jung discovered that when this pattern becomes conscious, when the empath finally sees what they've been doing and why, something extraordinary happens. The guilt begins to dissolve. The need for permission disappears. The exhaustion that felt permanent starts to lift. Not because circumstances changed, but because the empath made a single internal shift. They decided that their own emotional survival matters as much as everyone else's. That's it. That's the decision. And it sounds simple, but Jung understood why it's the hardest thing an empath will ever do. Carl Jung observed that for most empaths, choosing themselves feels like a moral failure. Their entire psychological architecture has been built around the belief that their value comes from what they give. To suddenly prioritize their own needs feels selfish, wrong, even dangerous. They fear that if they stop carrying others, everything will collapse. But here's what Jung discovered happens instead. And this is the part that will redefine how you understand strength. When the empath withdraws their energy from external demands and redirects it inward, they don't become cold. They become clear. They don't lose their compassion, they gain discernment. They stop being a sponge and become what Jung called a vessel, someone who can hold emotion without being drowned by it. The people who truly needed them don't leave. The ones who were using them do. And for the first time, the empath can see the difference. Jung called this process psychic reclamation, the retrieval of energy that had been scattered across other people's emotional landscapes. And the transformation it produces is unlike anything else in psychological development. The empath who has made this decision sleeps differently. They think differently. They relate differently. They stop waking up exhausted before the day has even begun. They stop feeling responsible for moods they didn't create. They stop shrinking themselves to make room for someone else's dysfunction. But here's the final piece, and it's what makes the recovered empath absolutely extraordinary. According to Carl Jung, an empath who has passed through burnout and emerged with conscious boundaries doesn't lose their gift. They refine it. They become what Jung described as psychologically sovereign, someone whose empathy is no longer a wound but a choice. They feel deeply, but they choose where that depth goes. They understand others, but they no longer sacrifice themselves for that understanding. Carl Jung said that the greatest transformation in human psychology is not the acquisition of new abilities, but the conscious integration of abilities that were always there. The empath who makes this decision doesn't become someone new. They become who they always were beneath the exhaustion, beneath the people-pleasing, beneath the fear of being seen as selfish. They become whole, not by adding something, but by finally stopping the hemorrhage of everything they already had. And that, according to Jung's lifetime of research into the human psyche, is the single decision that doesn't just end emotional burnout, it makes it impossible to return to. The empath who has chosen themselves is no longer available for depletion, not because they've built walls, but because they finally learned the difference between a door and a wound. And they've decided, consciously, permanently, to close what should never have been open in the first place.